Good morning, students. How are you? I hope all of you are fine and safe at your home. In the previous classes, we have discussed about the study of continent North America. And the previous class, we have already discussed about two important physical features of North America. They are the Western Cordilleras and the Appalachian Mountains. Today, we are going to discuss the remaining two important physical features, that is the Great Plains and the Canadian Shield. Okay, so listen carefully. I hope you.
Next physical feature of North America is the Great Plains. Look at the first one. Between the Western Cordilleras and the Appalachian, fertile lowlands known as the Great Plains. We have already studied in South America there is a Central Plains. Here also same. Between Western Cordilleras and Appalachian. Appalachians are also called as Eastern Highlands. Okay, between the Western Cordilleras and Appalachian, there is a region of vast, fertile lowlands known as the Great Plains. Clear? Second point is it extends from the river Mackenzie to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so the plain stretches from the river Mackenzie to the Gulf of Mexico. And the third point is the Great Plains has a treeless temperate grassland called prairies. In South America, we have already studied different types of grassland. Do you remember different types of grassland? Cambos, pampas, etc. Here also we can see a treeless temperate grassland. In South America, we have studied it's a cambos. Okay, here it's known as prairies. Very important one, prairies. The Great Plain has a temperate treeless grassland called prairies. The prairies are located almost the central part of the Great Plain. Okay, the central part of the Great Plain has a treeless temperate grassland called the prairies. Okay, so in the next point is in the USA, the Great Plains are drained by the river Mississippi and Missouri river system. Okay, so the Great Plains get water from these two river systems, that is Mississippi and Missouri river system. And next point is in Canada. They are drained by the river Saskatchewan and its tributaries. Okay, so in these two countries, we can see the Great Plains. Most of the area of Great Plains covered under these two countries. That means the USA and Canada. Okay, the Great Plains are drained by Mississippi and Missouri river system in USA, and in Canada they are drained by river Saskatchewan and its tributaries. Last point is the Great Plains are considered as the most productive agricultural region of the world. Most productive. Okay, the basins of these rivers, that means the Mississippi, Missouri River Basin and Saskatchewan River Basin, these basins are the most productive agricultural regions of the world. That's why the Great Plains, that means mainly the prairies, is considered as granary of the world. Granary, because the basins of these rivers are among the most productive agricultural region of the world. Okay, mainly the prairies. Prairies are called as granary of the world due to the action of these two rivers. Okay, so these two rivers are drain the fertile land. Along with that, they provide the fertile land for the agricultural activity. Got it? So these are the important points of the Great Plains. So please copy down these points into your notebook and study well. Okay, so once again we can read it. What are the important points in this section? So first one, the location of Great Plains. It's located between, that means the Great Plain located between the Western Cordilleras and the Appalachian. There is a fertile lowland known as the Great Plains, and the Great Plains extend from the river Mackenzie to the Gulf of Mexico. And the third one is the Great Plains has a treeless temperate grassland called prairies. The prairies are located almost in the center of the Great Plains. And next one is in the USA, the Great Plains are drained by Mississippi, Missouri river system. And the next one is in Canada, they are drained by the Great Plains are drained by the river Saskatchewan and its tributaries. And the last one and most important one is they are providing most productive agricultural region of the world. Okay, most productive agricultural region. Okay, so these are the important points of Great Plains. Study well.
Did you know that the middle section of the United States has a special name? It's called the Great Plains, and it's a huge area that starts on the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains. It's thousands of miles long and goes all the way from Mexico to Canada to Illinois. It's called the Great Plains because the area is incredibly flat and has good soil. For thousands of years, grass has grown on the plains, which helps make the soil healthy. The grass not only made the ground more fertile over time, but it also attracted animals like the buffalo, who roamed the area in the millions, who also helped fertilize the soil. Eventually, as people moved west, they turned these grasslands into farms, and now a lot of food we eat here in the United States is grown in these states. Sadly, the Great Plains aren't perfect, and there are some problems with growing crops and living there. The biggest problem is that the plains only get around 24 inches, or 2 feet, of water every year. That might sound like a lot, but it's actually very little rain, so the plains are very dry. This isn't a problem as long as grass can hold the soil in place. In the 1920s and 1930s, farmers weren't careful, and they made some mistakes in their farming. They plowed their fields too deep and grew the same thing every year. This caused a problem called soil depletion, which means the soil doesn't have the nutrients plants need to grow, and the plants die. With crops only growing part of the year, the rain that did come washed away the good soil, which made it even harder to grow crops. To make matters worse, droughts came and destroyed even more crops. A drought is when you get little to no rain, drying out the area even more. The droughts were so bad that eventually the ground completely dried up, and the wind started blowing dust everywhere. That dust killed more crops, which allowed more land to dry up, and more dust was created. It was a terrible time to be a farmer. Today, farmers have learned from the mistakes we made nearly 100 years ago and now plant their crops in new ways to keep the land healthy.
The last physical feature of North America is the Canadian Shield. Look at the main point. All of you please listen. The first point, in the northern part of the continent lies the Canadian Shield. Okay, northern part of the continent, Canadian Shield lies. That is almost around the Hudson Bay. Near to that, Canadian Shield located. And the second one is, here we can find some oldest rock of the world. Okay, oldest rock of the world are found here. And the third one is, they are rich in metallic minerals. You have already studied in lesson 5, mineral lesson, in distribution of minerals. That is, the metallic minerals mainly found in old plateaus. Okay, old plateaus. The Canadian Shield also a old plateau region. So in the Canadian Shield, metallic minerals are found. Next one, from the Canadian Shield, many short rivers flow, and it flows from the Canadian Shield to the Hudson Bay. That is the path of the river, many short rivers. The next point is about Great Lakes. Before that, you have to know the entire Canadian Shield was covered by thick sheets of ice during the last ice age. Okay, in the last ice age, the entire Canadian Shield was covered by thick sheets of ice. The action of these ice or glaciation, that is glacier. Okay, due to the action of glacier resulted in the formation of basins which are now either lakes or sands. Melting of glacier forms lakes or sands. Okay, here you can see that is the Great Lakes forms the southern boundary of the Canadian Shield. You have already studied the names of Great Lakes. A chain of 5 lakes together called Great Lakes, and it forms the southern boundary of the Canadian Shield. The lakes are Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. These are the 5 lakes. Okay, a chain of 5 lakes together called the Great Lakes, and it forms the southern boundary of the Canadian Shield. Got it? The next one is the famous Niagara Falls are located between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Here, Niagara Falls located between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Next point is the Canadian Shield is also known as Laurentian Shield. Laurentian Shield. The Laurentian Plateau located in its southeastern part. That's why the Canadian Shield is also known as the Laurentian Shield. Got it? Canadian Shield is also near to the Laurentian Plateau. Due to that, the Canadian Shield is also known as Laurentian Shield. Next point, the northeastern part comprising the Labrador Plateau. The northeastern part of Canadian Shield, the northeastern part of the Canadian Shield comprising the Labrador Plateau, and it is relatively high. The northeastern part comprising Labrador Plateau. In the southeastern part, Laurentian Plateau. In the northeastern part, that is Labrador Plateau. Okay, the Canadian Shield in the northeastern part, Labrador Plateau, and in the southeastern part, that is Laurentian Plateau. Got it. So the last point is the northern part of the Canadian Shield remains frozen for most of the year because here the northern part of North America lies in the frigid zone. You have already studied what are the importance of frigid zone, mainly the climate. Throughout the year, it experiences extremely low temperature. Okay, so that's why the northern part of North America experiences very low temperature. Due to that, most of the part remain frozen throughout the year. Now we can look at the important points of Canadian Shield once again. First one, in the northern part of the continent lies Canadian Shield. Canadian Shield lies in the northern part of North America. Second one is oldest rock of the world are found. Here the Canadian Shield is the oldest plateau. So here oldest rocks are found, and these plateau regions are very rich in metallic minerals. That is the third point. Fourth one is many short rivers flow from the Canadian Shield to the Hudson Bay. Many short rivers are originated from the Canadian Shield. And the fifth one, a chain of 5 lakes together called Great Lakes. Here we can see the names of 5 lakes. They are Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. These lakes together called Great Lakes. The Great Lakes forms the southern boundary of the Canadian Shield. And the next point is Niagara Falls, the world famous Niagara Falls located between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Next point is the Canadian Shield is also known as Laurentian Plateau because in the southeastern part of the Canadian Shield, Laurentian Plateau is located. That's why The Canadian Shield is also known as Laurentian Shield. Next one is the northeastern part of Canadian Shield comprising the Labrador Plateau. In the southeastern part, Laurentian Plateau. In the northeastern part, Labrador Plateau. And the last point is the northern part of Canadian Shield remains frozen for most of the year. This region lies in frigid zone due to extreme low temperature. This region, northern part of the Canadian Shield, remains frozen throughout the year. Got it? So these are the important points. So please copy down into your notebook and study well. Don't be lazy. Today itself you have to complete your notebook.
The Canadian Shield is the largest landform region in Canada. This rocky but beautiful region stretches from the Maritime provinces all the way up to the Northern Territories. But for this video, we'll be focusing on the Canadian Shield in Ontario. While the northern areas of this region are frozen and barren, the Canadian Shield we know in Ontario is a very rocky place with rolling hills and limited, poor soil. The bedrock that juts out all over this region is some of the oldest rock in the world that was forced to the surface billions of years ago by massive volcanoes. Over the millennia, rolling glaciers scraped away the soil, revealing the rock below. The Canadian Shield is also known for its massive forests that stretch for miles and miles. Lakes, streams, and ponds are also very numerous in this region, as over 25% of the Canadian Shield is covered in water. In the areas of this region that are more flat, the water has no place to go, so many swamps and marshes are formed. The summers in the Canadian Shield region in Ontario are long, hot, and dry. The winters can get quite cold, with lots of strong winds and lots of snow. This diverse region, with its many lakes and many forests, is home to a variety of wildlife, such as moose, wolves, coyotes, wood buffalo, lynx, wolverine, caribou, great horned owl, and of course, beavers. Lumber is a major resource of the Canadian Shield, as well as precious minerals such as gold, silver, iron, and even diamonds. Another major resource is the beauty of the land itself, as thousands of people come here to camp, hunt, fish, hike. While there are major cities in this region, such as Tilbury and Ottawa, our nation's capital, the majority of this region remains unpopulated, with only small towns or settlements. Still, this region remains one of the most diverse and beautiful places in Canada.
I hope you understood that I took today. Today we discussed about the Great Plains and the Canadian Shield. We have already completed this lesson, lesson 6, North America, study of continents, North America. So today itself read the textbook well and complete the short note. Don't be lazy. Don't be postponed tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Today itself you just do your duty. All the very best my kids. Thank you.